Hi, it's Zarka from Magpie Gemstones. I asked for some ideas on what videos to do, and someone asked to show how to use leather in jewelry. So that's what I'm trying to do. I looked at making a bunch while I was videoing, but it took so long. Instead, I will show one at the end of this video and how I make it, and I will show all the different ways that I know to use leather, or, well, it's not all the different ways, but quite a few different ways. So let's just get on that. Incorporating leather looks daunting, but it's really actually pretty easy. In this necklace here, this part from here to here is just simply strung on beading wire. And then the ends were crimped with a big bead cover over it. And then I put leather through, tied it in a knot, and on the other hand tied a number of knots so that this piece is adjustable, because this closure is a large hole button. So it just goes through one of these holes that I created with the knot, and there you have it. And that's how the piece goes on. The cool thing about leather is if this necklace is too long, the client just needs to add another knot wherever, and it'll continue to make the necklace smaller and smaller. But I also have made it adjustable by adding a number of knots. This button can go through this hole, or this hole, or this hole, and that's the added benefit of using a double strand of leather. Oh, this is actually cord, but now, how you go about doing this, there's so many different ways. Where you put the knots, what kind of beads you use, etc., etc. This one I slipped both strands of the leather through and then just made a loop and slip knotted like this. I just did that on the ends of the beading wire that were crimped. See? And then took the two strands on each side, made a knot for one end of the clasp, and used a large bead for the other end of the clasp. Now, if you have beads that have big enough holes that you can just put the leather through, well, then that's just obvious. You just string it, of course, and knot and do whatever design element you want. And again, here I used a large bead. Discs work better, buttons work great. Anything that has a flat surface or, is quite large. And then made a loop for the hole. But see, on this one I only used a single strand, because there's no way I could get two strands through these beads. Now for this one, you only need one. This is showing one strand, and then on the ends I can either tie a button onto one end and make a loop for the button to go through. I can take a clasp, either one that I've made myself or a pre-bought one. I can tie them onto the ends. Right? I can pull this through, bend it over, wire wrap this part right here, and this clasp will be attached to the end of the leather. And then it'll be done. This is one that I'm working on right now. I did the beading wire through the green garnets. I could only get the cord going through in one direction. I'll show you what I mean. Sometimes what I'll do is I'll put the cord doubled over through the hole, right, and then scoot the ends through and tug it tight, like here. But on this one, that's not really the design element I wanted. I wanted this loop to be fairly small. So what I've done instead, and which I kind of like, is let's see if I can get this through. See, this is why I didn't want to actually make them on video, because leather, even though it's really easy, it can take a lot of fiddling and can take quite a bit of time, and I didn't want to waste your time watching me fiddle with leather, because tying a knot in leather is tying a knot in leather. It doesn't really take, you don't really need to watch someone doing that. So I'm going to pull this through this loop that I have on the beading wire. And there we go, got it. Make sure the ends are even. Now when you measure how much leather you're going to need, every knot takes an incredible amount of leather. So you have to make sure that you give yourself extra leather to be able to handle that. So on this end, I'm just going to do I think it's called a surgeon's knot. I'm going to do left over right, and then I'm going to roll that a little bit so that the leather sits where I want it to. Just roll it in my fingers and get it to all lay down. And then right over left. And pull that down. And then as a design element, one nice thing to do, if you can, is to put a nice big holed bead on here, like I did on this one. It's a nice big hole bead to cover the holes. I don't have any sterling big hole beads that I like to use with this design, because this design is so simple and basic to show off the gemstones. That what I'm doing instead is I'm taking 3 jump rings. Jump rings are nice. You can make your own coiled wire, bigger hole beads that you can slip on there to get, to put a little bit of metal. But the reason I like to put some beads on there is to pull the leather together, so that it's oh, I ran out of jump rings. Hang on a second. It pulls the leather together and keeps it more in line, so it has a cleaner look when it goes around the back of the neck. I often like to double up the leather, but in a second I'll show you another design where the leather is straight. There's just one piece of leather. And of course, if you're using smaller focal beads, you don't want to double up the leather. You don't want, it's about design element. You don't want the leather in the back being thicker or outweighing what it is that you have in the front. It all has to be in proportion. Okay, so I'm going to put those 3 on there, and then that will match the other side. I'm going to do another surgeon's knot, left over right, and then right over left, and pull those down, give them a little tug, give them a little roll so they look good, and there is the necklace. Right. So now I'm going to do the clasp on the back, and I've decided to do a button closure. So with a button closure, one side I'm going to have to do a knot for where the clasp is going to, the button's going to go through to hold the necklace. So I knot. I like the overhanded knot. And then another knot. And leave enough room for the button to easily go through, but not so much room that it's going to pop off of there. Okay? So I've done a double knot on this end. Here's the necklace. And on the other end, I'm going to do a double knot. I'm going to slip this button on here. See, this is what's time consuming, is when you deal with leather, it doesn't want to go in, So anyway, I'm going to fiddle with that later, not on your time. So I would put this button on, tie another knot, and there you'll have the closure. And the closure just slips through here, like so. And then your necklace will stay on the neck. Ta-da! Alright, so here's another example. The reason why you would want to do the beading wire through the bead, or do regular wire through the bead, is because you have a bead That's obviously too small to put leather through, but you want to incorporate leather somehow. So on this one, I just wire wrapped this bead, left loops on the ends, put the leather through the loop, and this is a single strand of leather, as you can see. And so I wire wrapped the leather on there. Now the other side, you just do the same thing, wire wrap the leather on, and this is another way to do a closure. I wire wrapped directly onto the leather a hook, and the other end, instead of it being a hook, it'll be a loop, so that this will go directly into it, and then I'll have a with leather. Similar can also be done with earrings. Of course, you can just have big hole beads that the leather will go straight through. That's an option. And I had another earring here that I was going to show you. Now I've moved all these necklaces and I can't find it. But those are the basic ways that I incorporate leather into jewelry. Send me an email or say something to me if there's a style that you don't understand, or you don't understand how it's implemented, and I'll see if I can walk you through it. Thanks, and remember that on Magpie Gemstones we have a whole bunch of big hole gemstone beads that are perfect for leather. Thanks for taking the time to watch.